Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Monday, August 7th meeting of the Town of Rhinebeck Planning Board. We know that one planning board member is running late. We do have a quorum. We are expecting Craig to arrive. I haven't heard that he's not coming, so we'll assume he is. But we have a sufficient number in the meeting. I believe the agenda stands as posted, and no changes to that. We've all had a chance, I hope, to receive and review Jim's meeting notes.
I boldly accept them.
Thank you, Edna. Can I have a second, please?
Second.
Thank you, Sharon. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries.
It's very hard to hear you.
Other than swallowing it, I'm really not knowing what I can do here.
That's better.
Well, it may be better for you, but it's extraordinarily uncomfortable for me. I can't read and talk at the same time. So you have the draft July 17th minutes in front of you. Are there any corrections? Additions? Hearing none, could I have a motion to accept them?
So moved.
Thank you, Edna. Second, please. Sharon, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay. Any correspondence or announcements? Nothing? All right, then I think we'll roll into the new applications. First up is Rhinebeck 2020 LLC, Route 308 for a minor subdivision. You, Victoria?
Yes.
Okay.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Here on behalf of Rhinebeck 2020 LLC. You should all be familiar with this application because this is the second time you're seeing it. Unfortunately, the application was approved, and they did not timely request an extension of approval. There was one condition which required preparation of an easement. The easement's now been submitted for review, but we do need to go through the reapproval process while that's pending. So we are here tonight to answer any questions and hope that you will set a public hearing.
Could you just briefly run through what the application is for?
Sure. This is a lot on New York State Route 308, and they are subdividing it into two lots. Lot 2 will have access over Lot 1 because of site distance issues right here, which is where the easement is needed. And then other than that, it's just a straightforward 2-lot subdivision.
I did the site visit.
Michael and I did the site visit. Anyway, there are no changes, is that correct?
Correct, there's no changes from the previous plat, to the best of my knowledge. I mean, it's the same plan that the engineer told me was approved.
Okay, do you recall it, Michael? Did you do the site visit with me?
I think we did, I know we were out there doing a site visit to one of the subdivisions.
I remember doing the site visit. I remember the little pond.
I think we were, most of us were running out and big site visits.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember the long walk up to the top of the hill, which has the,
I think you probably did it with me.
well, who wasn't there? Is there anybody here who wasn't there? Darren was a little.
There was also a wetlands permit because the fence was going on.
Okay. All right, are there questions from members? Let's start with Jim. Jim, you have any comments?
No, I took a look. I believe it's the same application as we saw previously, and as such, I think it's essentially just a paperwork issue.
Planning board members, any clarification, questions you have?
There's no issue with the wetland permit. Is that correct?
I don't believe so.
We already approved it all, so
So
it's...
that didn't extinguish, that just was done despite the fact that they didn't move ahead. Okay.
Well, I think we reapplied for both because when one expired, it was unclear by the town whether the other still was in effect. So we reapplied for everything. to really fresh
Just to
start.
be safe.
Yes.
Okay. Any questions? Jim, you have a draft procedural resolution?
So So the draft resolution for the board's consideration tonight for essentially reapproval for an approved project for minor subdivision and wetlands permit, which expired under Town Code Chapter 101 and Section Chapter 120, accepting the application documents as adequate for further review by the planning board as advisors in the public, classifying as unlisted under seeker. And then the only thing I thought we should do is schedule a public hearing for the application. I don't believe, since we've done it before and it's a paperwork issue, that we need to have it referred to HAPAC, do another site visit, or any of those formalities we need to.
Everybody okay with that?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, we have the draft approval procedural, I'm sorry, who would like to motion?
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Motion by Michael, second by Sean. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention.
When is the public hearing?
September 5th.
Uh,
September 5th.
September, is that okay, Gretchen?
Yep.
All right.
Is that a Tuesday?
Yes.
All right. The second new application that we're reviewing this evening is 6822 Route 9 LLC. That is for site plan review. Good evening.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Can everyone see past me to the screen? So I'm Darren Vidowich with the Art of Building, and I'm here tonight to talk about 6822 Route 9, which is the site of our office, our business office. If you're not familiar, it's just south of what's currently Pet Country and approximately across the street from Monroe, Muffler Monroe Tire, the auto repair place on Route 9, just south of the traffic light. And we were before the board about 3 years ago now, and we received a site plan approval to basically renovate the building, change around the configuration of the parking, and do some other improvements to the site, quite a bit of landscaping, all of which has been done at this point. And I'm back to talk to the board about our proposal, which is now to add 4 decorative stone walls to the property. So one here, a longer section here, and one here along the road. And the idea is that they're supposed to look like a ruined farm wall. So something that would speak more to the past. And then along behind the building, the 4th section of wall in an L shape, and the idea is just basically seating area. So when we have phone calls or meetings outside, it gives us somewhere to sit. And all these walls are very similar, composed of native bluestone, about 18 inches tall. The ones along the road wouldn't have any kind of decorative cap on them. They would just be more dry laid, and the one back here, some bluestone cap material to make it more suitable to sit on. So that's the first of 2 things that we're here to seek. And then the second is, when we did that original approval, we really had no idea how we wanted to enter the building. We knew there was a door, but we didn't have the steps figured out at that time. So the second part of our proposal is to add front steps to the building, which looks significant, but it's actually just 3 steps. So the idea is there's sort of a long section of landing, a small step, and a shorter section of landing that take you to the height of the finished floor in the building. And this would be constructed of a metal material, sort of a mesh, something you'd see maybe at a ski resort. So that the idea being is that in the winter months, the snow, the rain, things like that go right through it. And then we're in the construction business, so when people come in with muddy boots and things like that, it allows the mud to shed before you get into the building. And it's just done in sort of an artistic way that's drawn out a little bit more rather than just 3 quick steps onto the building. And that also helps us with some ADA access. We're a very small building, so we have limited ADA requirements, but this allows us to do things like have a ramp on hand to allow people to get up this very gradual approach to the building. And other than that, everything is in place today.
Do you have any images of
We
that?
do. So I submitted a couple of images of what the proposed steps are and also some images of the buildings. That was the walls we can start with. So this would be the wall up behind us, behind the office building, the one that would be used more for seating. By the way, these walls are in place or under construction. We later learned, probably something I should have known, that walls are structures and require planning board approval. So this one had been completed prior to that time. These are uncompleted. They sit the way they were when Mike last discussed constructing them. So that gives you a real good idea what we're proposing to do, just taller. This is before and afters of the building. Anyone remembers, it was a former Costco oil terminal. Had been contaminated with some oil in the topsoil layer of the site, and it was cleaned up prior to our buying it. And then we now occupy it as our business offices. So before on top, after on the bottom. And then this is the proposed front step. It's a shop drawing. It's pretty simple in terms of an exhibit, but it does tell us what we need to build with. And like I said, a taller, higher upper landing, very small step, and then a long drawn out lower railing composed of just a simple metal grading material to allow everything that falls on it to pass through. And then this gives you a sense of side view. The parking lot elevation would be about here, and the first floor of the building would be about here. And you can see how it sort of facilitates a simple ramp to be on site for handicap accessibility.
And no railings?
None needed. We'll decide if we think at some point we need to put them on. The idea is here that we'll plant right up to the edges of it. As you can see today, the idea is that there's some pretty strong landscape elements that kind of mask out the building. So the idea here would be to pull the vegetation in really close to it and just have it just be this only visible as you kind of approach it from the front.
What's the overall height from the threshold to the, is it more than 19 inches?
It is,
Or 6.5, about 12 inches?
Yeah.
Still 12 in thickness.
And
there's-
sorry.
There's no pitch to the, so it's not really a ramp, it's
well,
stairs.
the ramp would be something we could have handy to sort of bridge the step situation. So as needed.
The stone walls, are they dry laid?
They're dry laid, yeah.
Because the seating area didn't necessarily look dry laid.
Well, I should answer it two different ways. The front ones are dry laid. We cheat a little bit when we dry lay them, to be honest. We put a little bit of Portland cement in there without water. We also throw a little bit of rebar in there.
And it's not dry.
So it's not technically dry laid, but the look will be dry laid, so you won't see mortar joints from the sides.
What's the function of the walls along the roadway?
Decorative.
So it's purely ornamental.
Really one.
Is there any indication or evidence that there were ever stone walls on that part of Spring?
Yeah, we just felt like it was an element that just sort of, we've got a lot of planting, but there's no real hardscape other than a parking lot, so it just felt a little bit more to sort of define the edge of what's parking versus roadway. Breaks up the green lawn there a little bit. And by the way, one of the comments when we had the pre-application conference was to discuss this with the DOT to see if there was any issues putting walls along the state highway, and they've gotten back to us and said there's no issues. The only thing they care about is that we actually are sure to stake the property line before we start building the walls to make sure that they don't somehow migrate to where they shouldn't be into the right way.
Is that, you have that in writing then?
Yeah, that was forwarded, submitted as part of the
Let me
package.
circle back to Jim first, and then I'll go back to planning board members if you don't mind. Jim?
Yeah, so I just had three comments. The first one was just, as Darren noted, that DOT had signed off on it. I just hadn't seen the email. I have seen that, so we're good there. The other one was talking about surveying information on the site plan, and that did get clarified, so I think we're fine there on that element as well. And then the other one was just to, and Darren mentioned it, but just to encourage you to, understand your ADA requirements. I don't do ADA compliance checks, just want to mention it since you are a commercial business.
Yep.
That's something to keep in mind, which is specific. So.
Absolutely. And it's about a 600 square foot building size, so the requirements are fairly limited, so we're trying to be a step better than that.
And so I think it's like, I'm good.
Okay. Other planning board members? I only ask about railings because I will confess, as I'm aging, to more and more needing something to hold on to. And so I just like people to take that into consideration. So if you're thinking about it, that's good enough for me. Anything else? We have a draft procedural resolution.
Draft resolution for the application by Darren Davidovich for site plan approval for construction of the stone wall at 6822 Route 9 in the CBS Commercial Business South District. Accepting the application and supporting documents is adequate for further review. Classifying the actions type 2 under seeker, scheduling the application public hearing for September 5th. We will send this to the CAB for review. We'll send this to Dutchess County Planning because it is site plan, and we need 2 planning board members to do a site visit.
Who would like to go? Sean?
How about you?
Okay, Sean and Michael. All right, may I have a motion to accept the draft procedural resolution?
So moved, Sean.
Sean, thanks. Second. Eric, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Thank you. Gretchen, I'm just checking. You wrote,
I know, I wrote them.
Okay.
I put the wrong one.
Oh, all right. I just wanted to double check that I wasn't missing something. All right, thanks, Darren.
Thanks, everyone.
The third and last new application for this evening is Quentin Chu, 30 Hook Road, for site plan review.
My name's Peter Sweeney. I'm the architect and representing the owner. Property is 30 Hook Road. I think the next drawing might be more the site plan.
You're just a little bit, I can't see my cursor is. That one's bad, thanks. Let's go over this.
Yeah, so you can see it's a kind of large kind of whatever shape that is, site way off of Hook Road. There's, and we're here, I think, because the property has a historic designation. There's no plan, proposed changes to any of the existing structures, which is the main house right here and the barn. What we're here for is a proposal to build a small pool house, 280 square feet. The pool is basically existing. It's actually changing from a liner pool to a gunite, but it's in the same location. And the fence that's shown around that is existing, so everything is happening within the existing footprint of the fence. The pool is existing. We're just proposing this very small pool house. When I say pool house, the proposed use is really just a small little kitchenette, no living space, and a bathroom. No changes proposed to landscaping either. So this is the plan of the proposed pool house, and this is the pool. This existing.
Jim?
Just a couple comments. So you have already submitted to the county health department for review, right?
I'm sorry, what?
You've already submitted this to county
Yeah,
health?
yes.
So they have it
Yeah,
in front of them.
Yep.
There's no new landscaping that's been proposed. This would be a third accessory roof structure, but we're good there in terms of size, no issues. It is a historic site, historic property, I should say. But this is replacing something that already exists on the site. The only other comment that I did have, and I don't know that it applies, but I want to bring it up for discussion, is that there is a kitchenette proposed with no cooking, and the space is not proposed to be habitable. When we get into these situations, we do discuss whether or not we think this could be considered an accessory dwelling use. I have my opinion on that, but I turn that over to the board as it's your decision as to what you think. What we're showing here is, the powder room, an entryway in here, the kitchenette area, and then a storage area off to the side, all of the exterior, the exterior door. But I just thought it was important to bring it up for a quick discussion.
Just to clarify, there is no kitchen proposed. There's no cooking proposed.
So it's a sink with a...
It's just a sink and dishwasher.
I didn't think so in this case when I looked at it. The storage room has an exterior entry and I don't see any windows in it. So in order to be an accessory dwelling, you have to take out that center, whatever it is, and, or is it, no, that center cabinet, which apparently has a, in the kitchen. Yeah, that thing, you have to take that out, and I guess put a bed in there, and then put some cooking equipment in there.
And the drawings also state that there's no heating proposed, it's seasonal.
Just the air conditioning, right?
Yes, so there you go.
I think it's clear, but I wanted to bring it up just because
Because we bring it up
every time.
Planning board members.
And that's the only question I would have for air conditioning today. Air conditioners are usually done with heat pumps. That's the most efficient way to do it. And of course, the heat pump by name is able to, right in my house, heats my house. And it also cools it in the summer. So while we say it's not heated seasonal, if you're using modern equipment, the potential is there to heat it if you have the air conditioning component in there. So that is still a possibility and to heat it.
Yeah, the equipment we're proposing is a ductless main split,
Yeah.
just AC. But yeah, I suppose you put a heat coil.
I think it's not just AC anymore. Mini splits are based on heat pump technology. So there's a reverse valve, so if you heat in the winter and you can air condition in the summer, it's not that difficult a thing using just a single compressor. So it is habitable space, potentially 12 months of the year. There's no kitchen in there. Obviously, there's plumbing for the powder room and whatnot.
There's no shower.
There's no shower, so I would agree with Ed, and it doesn't seem to me that it meets the standard of an accessory dwelling unit or something of that sort. But I think that in this day and age, nothing is just air conditioning or modern equipment. It's just not done.
Comments from other planning board members?
Access to the site where you're going to be doing the construction, where is that going to be coming from?
I'm sorry, what?
Access to the actual site where you're going to be doing the construction, is that coming from the existing driveway?
No change to access or.
But how are you going to be getting to the actual site? Obviously, you're going to be doing demo on the floor.
Through the back, you can swing around the back behind that barn.
Can you lower that, Tim, so we can see? So you come in through the driveway and then do what?
They come in through the driveway, come down here, and then basically come in and access from back there. So no change to channel access, or we don't need to remove any trees for access.
Does the plan show exterior lighting on the building?
I think we show exterior lighting and have a spec for light.
Okay, thanks.
And the spec, I think, is down below.
Thanks.
It's dark sky compliant. Yeah, it's just our, yeah, that's it.
Other questions, comments?
This is going to be just built on a slab.
Yeah.
Is there an existing slab there that's constructible, or do you have
No,
to?
we'll pour a new slab.
And you're taking out a much smaller pool house that just has the utilities in it?
It's not really, it's got pool equipment in it. It's sort of an old
An old shack?
shack, yeah.
And that
It's actually bigger than this, so
Oh, really?
this is smaller than what's existing. By about 20 square feet.
Where's Hook Road? It's way back there.
And this is after it splits into upper and lower?
Yeah, this is actually sort of carved out right in the,
Oh, it's in the triangle?
front, but, so it's completely, there's no neighbors, so.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else? Could, we have a procedural resolution, draft procedural resolution?
Yes. Procedural resolution for the board's consideration tonight. For Quinton Chuber site plan approval under Town Code Chapter 125 to replace the pool, constructing a pool house at 30 Hook Road, accepting the application supporting documents as adequate for further review, classifying the action as type 2 under seeker, scheduling the public hearing for September 5th at 6:15. We will send it to the CAB for review, we will send it to Dutchess County, and also refer it to HAPAC, since it's a historic site. And we need to delegate 2 planning board members for a site visit.
I will go.
I'll go with that now.
All right.
Okay, may I have a motion to accept the draft procedural resolution?
So moved.
Motion, second, please.
Second.
Thank you, Sharon. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries. And then Craig will be in touch with you to schedule a site visit.
Thank you.
All right, thanks very much. Moving ahead, we're going to go into the public hearing portion of the sites of this evening's agenda. First up, Alexander Lloyd Morton Road, site plan review and special use permit for the construction of a single-family dwelling and artist studio. Hi, good evening.
I don't think I was coming here to present anything more. The last board, the last hearing that we had, we said that the only thing was contingent upon the Department of Health approval. And so finally, we got from David Pearson the verbal approval, which we sent the email. I also brought copies in case. And because he was taking no more issue, asked for the signed sealed drawings for approval. And I was actually hoping that Langdon would say that they had everything in their hand. But so we're hoping to seek the resolution this evening.
So one question did come up, actually in relation to what's been going on in the counties. So just want to get some clarification on the guest suite, and whether or not there are actual like, kitchen facilities in here or not. It looked like to me a bathroom, a bed, and some furniture, but in some of the emails I wasn't totally clear if this is meant to show anything else. If you knew, I didn't see any plumbing plans.
Right, no, it's just a guest suite.
It's just a guest suite.
With that rectangle in the...
Oh, a freestanding closet. No, go ahead.
I was going to say, so there've been a bunch of emails back and forth between the county and the applicant, and I was kind of confused a little bit. There've been a couple of them in the last 2 weeks or so. So I did call Dave at the county just to get clarification of where things stand, just to make sure from him that I knew what was going on. And he did say that he's at the point where he believes it should be approved, as long as he gets the paperwork that he's needed. But it does need to go to his superior for final sign-off. So I do have it from him that, he thinks the plans are in good shape now, that the issues have been addressed. But it is not official yet.
So I'll open it up, comment.
So he could move ahead as that as a part of the condition, and then the only issue is if it does come back as an issue, then we start the process. They can start the process.
The applicant would have to understand that if we go ahead with a conditional approval this evening, and for some reason, Mr. Pearson's supervisor does not agree with Mr. Pearson, the responsibility is yours then to start the process from the beginning all over again.
With the Department of Health?
With us.
Okay.
I-
I thought the draft resolution already said that was conditional on assuming.
If you get a conditional approval tonight, essentially what we're doing is we're closing the public hearing
Right.
and ending the process.
Right.
If the county comes back and says, we want you to make something that we consider to be a moderate to substantial change to the plans, you'd have to come back to Gretchen and ask to get put back on the agenda and start the process over again with the procedure resolution and then hold another public hearing. So if you want to move forward, if the board is willing to consider it and you want to move forward with conditional approval on this, you just have to understand that if something changes, materially changes, you're going to have to start over with this board from the beginning of the process. So there's a potential risk there.
Look at
That's
you,
just how-
standing there all by yourself. and
Well,
making this choice.
It's a tough one because the whole, premise was we were coming here because they said that they didn't take issue and they were getting the approval. So I don't, what are the options though? Because then if I say we're not going to get the resolution, are we kicked back another month?
That's typically, I don't mean to speak for the board, but I believe that's typically why we don't do conditional approvals for outside agency reviewing approvals, because of that exact issue. You're taking that risk if you decide you want to do that, and again, if the board is willing to take that step.
Well, let me ask another way. If, let's say I walk out of here and David Pearson's email comes through and says that we're approved, what has to happen this following month? We get put back on the agenda and then it's effectively just paperwork or just?
If we had the approval in hand this evening with David's supervisor's sign off, we would vote for approval.
I understand that. I guess my point is, assuming it comes anytime after I walk out the door.
It goes back to the next scheduled date.
And then that evening, I mean, I guess my question is, do I come back here and it's just accepting, assuming that he's approved, accepting the resolution?
Yes.
Yes.
Am I allowed to make a phone call?
I'm gonna make a phone call to a friend. Remember that TV show? I'm gonna make a phone call to a friend.
The other thing is a conditional approval will not permit you to get a building permit or proceed at all with anything. So those are just a conditional approval, so until we actually get the final paperwork,
Understood.
You still won't have anything more than you have
Right.
waiting until you get the final sign off
Right.
from the health department and then
Right. Yeah, the health department and, the health department is not my concerns, you know, the timing, obviously, we would have wished he would have just sent it right away. And then we also know we're still going to SHPO and getting our building permits and all those other, you know, items. So I'm less, or not SHPO, the building department to get
I
that.
was thinking that. Well, I think that's
But,
Try not to do that.
But I'm just trying to think about, if we wait, if we kick this, you know, down the road and wait a month, does that hold anything else up? I mean, are we allowed to proceed with pulling drawings together for the final building department, or everything has to?
You can do all the behind-the-scenes work you wish to do. In the meantime, if you feel you still have a lot of prep work to do to go to the building department. I think Michael's point is, if you were ready with it right now and you went in tomorrow after your approval, you couldn't because it would be conditional and you'd have to wait. I mean, you could have it already, but they couldn't accept it and move on it.
Got it. So if he waited a week, then we're really only gaining, you know, 3 weeks, meaning like, you know what I'm saying, between the time that we can do something. Okay. I really wanted to walk out here with her.
I know.
But I also don't want to take the risk of kicking everything back just because Pearson hasn't sent the paperwork.
Well, we try to be very upfront with, we want you to understand the risk.
Yeah.
I don't personally believe it's a huge risk, but it is a risk and are obligated to let you know that.
Right, okay. Would we get on the September 5th agenda? Okay. I think that's the prudent thing to do. If I thought that there was a big difference between the next 4 weeks and we're ready to proceed, but I don't think that that's. Okay.
Do you know when the variance expires? Is it November?
Well, that's another issue. I mean, 1 month wouldn't have made or broke that, but our variance expires, I think it's November or something.
November.
So we're gonna, just given the duration of this approval, we're gonna have to ask for an extension.
They don't extend variances.
What's this?
They don't extend variances. You have to break ground or get a building permit before, so it doesn't expire.
But what happens when the site plan reviews brought us to the variance expiration?
Hopefully, if you get it in September, you can get a building permit in.
I would use
If the building permit's in, the process is started.
So just having the building application, permit application into the town?
issued and work commenced. Break ground is what we're saying.
Got it. So even if they just started moving dirt or something, get the staging or the silt fence or something up, something to show progress?
Something to show substantial progress,
Yeah.
like a shovel in the ground would not be acceptable.
But if the deadline is November and the permitting process takes X amount of time,
I don't know what the permitting
They're
process,
not usually that.
I don't think it's running that long.
what is the typical
I
time?
can't speak to that.
It's usually not months. I mean, if you have everything in, so in this time, you may want to actually contact Kimberly and make sure you know exactly what you have to put in,
Okay.
so that way you're prepared.
Understood. So now, I'm trying to reconsidering my first option, which is,
Well, while you're thinking, let me ask, since this is a public hearing, if there's anyone here from the public wishing to comment on this application.
no, they just want me to get the resolution.
Okay, well, I'd like to just put it up to a vote, but
The one thing to consider is, you know, when you're going to be ready to actually apply for the building permit, to have all the drawings, all the construction drawings,
Yeah.
everything ready to go.
Yeah.
Okay? Because that's really going to be the thing that's going to hold you up. This
Right.
is not going to hold you up really, keep doing this
Right.
thing whatsoever.
Right,
But that's going to be the one that you're going to have to.
right. No, understood. I just wanted to make sure that there was nothing in the paperwork that meant that you couldn't be concurrent or
No,
something.
you can do everything, get it all ready to go, so as soon as Melody signs the site plan, you can go down and submit the application for the building permits that you require.
And if Mr. Pearson crosses his Ts and dots his Is, as we thought he'd do by today, but he does it anytime between now and September 5th, then we should have a
just to
resolution.
clarify, Dave is waiting for his supervisor. So Dave is indicated he is fine,
Right.
but that he does not make the final decision.
Yeah, understood. Okay, well then I guess the prudent thing to do is hold off.
So I make a motion that we should.
We have a motion to continue the public hearing until September 5th. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Michael. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions?
Thank you.
Yes. Have a good Labor Day.
Thank you, too.
Next up this evening, waiting in the wings, is T-Court LLC, 195 River Road, site plan amendment for miniature train.
Good evening. Nancy representing T-Court LLC. And so this application is it's actually an amended application to the miniature train that was previously approved by the board and then subsequently reapproved since the site plan approval was about to expire. And so the project site is, Jim, maybe you can go to the first drawing. I'll just be quick about the location. Our property is located on the west side of River Road. River Road is the location of the property. Next sheet, please. And so in the property, there's we've gone through multiple applications for T-Court LLC, but this specific application was for construction of a miniature train and some structures associated with it. As I said, it's gone through master plan consideration by this board and also site plan approval, and as I mentioned before, a reissuance of that site plan approval. This application is for two changes that are being proposed to the construction of the miniature train. Actually, there's two changes, I guess three. One is just a minor relocation of this is the station house, this is the car barn, and this is the roundhouse. The station house moved a few feet. This one was about 8 or 9 feet relocation from the originally approved site plan. And then, more importantly, there were two other features that were added to the train alignment. So once again, this is the train alignment here, goes this way. These sections right through here, where you see the dots through here, these are trestle sections that are located along the train. This is a trestle and bridge section through here. And so the two new amendments to this miniature train are twofold. One, in this section through here, we're proposing now to construct a arch bridge, and it's a stone arch bridge. This was previously, this section through here was this was filled with on-grade track through this area, and then also there was a small piece of trestle through here, and then the other change is right here. A tunnel is being proposed for the train alignment. This section originally was there would be retaining walls on both sides of the on-grade rail, and so the change is just to add a cover, add a roof to that, to this area here. So that's those are the proposed changes that are being requested by this board.
I don't have anything new. Didn't have a lot of comments originally when we looked at this. I think the biggest discussion item from the planning perspective is just related to the footings that have been used and how that's changing from the original plan. But otherwise, I think everything's pretty much the same. The movement of the building didn't make a difference in the cover. This is cover was previously tangible. And I do have the images of the other elements Mark talked about. So we have the bridge and some sort of.
So this is the arch bridge section through here. So there'll be arch culverts that'll be located through here, foundation here, supporting the arch culverts in place of the trestle. So then these are the supporting areas here. Here's another sectional view of it. It's a little over 180 feet in length, and as you saw from the site plan, it's actually on a curved section. Also, Jim, do you have the tunnel section? It's on, I can give you the sheet. Here, also, oh gosh, I forgot. It was one other item for discussion. It was, so this is plans for the station house. And so the original station house was going to be wood siding, and this proposal is to have stone face on the portion of the station house. So Jim, that tunnel section is located on.
I got it here. I found it.
Yeah, great. And so this is the tunnel section, as I mentioned. So there were, part of the original approval was retaining walls. They were going to be just stone-laid retaining walls, but now they'll be precast concrete, and then with a steel section for the train tractors right down through here. And so this is a sectional view of it. And then above that here's the plan view.
Planning board members.
Well, I made the site visit. Sean and I were there at different times, and I guess at Sean's site visit, you showed him a mock-up of a stone.
Yeah, they have just
stone wall.
actually built this.
And I saw photographs of that, and it looked like they really nailed it as far as the existing stonework on the wall. It seemed to be very competently done. They matched the random ashlar pattern very well. Also, in approaching this arched bridge, you've done a lot of clearing since we were there last time. So it's much clearer what the alignment is and how the track is sort of going to come to life. A couple of things that I noted: the cover on the tunnel portion is not going to be. It's not going to be covered with soil or anything like that, is that?
That's to be determined.
Okay.
Right.
So you are going to have a prominent feature emerging from the crest of that hill, and It's just something that is different from
Yes,
what
it
the
is.
original plan was. One of the things that I noticed in talking with you and with Seth in the field is that there's been a field change as far as the nature of the pilings that support the entire trestle on the entire construction. And I had gotten the impression early on that those were going to be helical piles.
That's correct.
There's even in the landscape restoration plan that was submitted early on, there's a lengthy description about how the helical piles can be cut just below grade, and that's minimally impactful. It's a very archaeologically sensitive area. It's a landscape garden that's part of the 20-mile district. It's a historic landscape, and it seems as though that seemingly minor change, which is perfectly valid, from an engineering standpoint, results in a lot more disruption because you have to auger out a hole that's big enough for the footing of the pier that goes in there. And it ends up being at every station of the track.
Correct.
So that seems like it's a lot. And Seth had said, well, you would have to do some excavation for the collar of the helical pile anyway.
You actually have to have gradient between the two helical piles because they're offset, so it's 10 feet horizontally, along the alignment. Offset is maybe 6-7 feet somewhere in there, so you'd actually have to have gradient that was sitting on those helical piles.
Right, well, the grade beam is still a part of this construction with the piers, is that?
No, actually it's not, because it's just piers, and then from the piers, the trestle, so there's both wood and steel trestle.
Okay. And from looking at the drawings where this is detailed in this most recent set, it shows a 42-inch diameter hole that has to be excavated in order to fit the footing, which is like 24 inches on a side or something like that?
No, it's actually, so at the base, so they're tapered as they come up, and at the top, maybe 8 by 8, and then they're tapered down to probably, maybe at the most, 2 by 2, at the most, at the base.
Yeah, and because that's square, and because you're using an auger to sink the hole, you actually have to put a square peg in a round hole, basically.
Yeah,
so you need a bigger round hole. It just seems like it's many yards of excavation that was not part of the original approval, which was really to just put a screw in the ground.
Right.
So it just seems like that's a lot more disruptive. And, we're talking about some minor changes as far as the alignment of the, station, change of the siding of the railroad station. I think there's a far more significant difference in the field change that was made as far as the impact on the ground.
Okay. So, it's still, our total disturbance area, I do show an increase in the total disturbance area.
Okay.
And so is the concern archaeology?
Well, yeah, in part, and also just the impact on the landscape as far as the amount of soil that you're removing and disrupting for the construction.
So it's actually not removed. It's all graded in place. So there's very little, because we've actually been installing for 3 or 4 weeks now. So most material there's some that's unsuitable, has been removed, but most of the material remains on site.
But it doesn't go back in the same hole that it came out of.
It does.
Okay, well, the drawing showed those holes being filled with gravel.
No, they're not. It's actually, you're right. You're absolutely right that it did show gravel. So it was meeting with the engineer for the town, representing the town, and also our structural engineer. And so native soil is being backfilled in the holes because it was found to be suitable for the backfill.
So the majority of it goes back into the excavation.
Okay, and I only saw the report from the archaeologist relating to a different part, I guess a different phase or a different project where there was the culvert under the historic, the Hucklebush Railroad that transverses the property. There were some minor changes that you were making there, and they did have some significant finds in that location.
That was on another property.
And their recommendation was to try to preserve that in place and avoid it if at all possible. I don't know what the recommendation was for the rail alignment.
This rail, this was all part, this was all investigated archaeologically. There were multiple test holes that were done here. There were only a few done through here because of slopes, right? Because, and so Harkin did it, so I provided a slope analysis for them. And so there, I believe I think there were 1 or 2 holes right here, and then there were several holes there. There were no findings at all. So this entire alignment was archaeologically investigated.
Let me add here, so we have your report, we also have a written report that came to us, I believe, today from CAB, essentially raising the same issue.
Okay.
And Mark and I spoke about this, and Mark has provided the original, the change, the drawings that changed from helical piles to the present engineering approach has now been provided to Dr. Ann Wentworth of NACAC. And she's been asked to review that and comment as to whether or not the engineering changes will have any impact on archaeology. So, I hope that transaction in her report will address some of the questions you're raising and the ones that were raised by her.
But there was no recommendation for ongoing monitoring while the digging is going on.
I've been there every day, and there's soils remaining the same. Once again, they're not, they're silty loamy soils, and so they've been suitable for backfilling around those foundations. And I can, once again, CPL has been out there to do inspections, and so they are monitoring them also.
Sean, you also made a site visit. Would you like to comment?
Yeah, not much to add really to what Craig mentioned on the stonework. It looked quite fabulous. We actually went around the property, Mark took me just so we could almost compare it throughout the property. I really don't have much to add. We pretty much covered. I know the biggest concern right now is really disturbance. I think that's been pretty well covered by the rest of the board tonight.
The stonework on what?
So they mocked up what the stonework would be to match for the arches that's up on the screen right now. And so they mocked up a version of that. They actually had a team of gentlemen come in and mock that up so we could actually see exactly what that would end up looking like.
Using veneer stone?
Yes, yeah. And I provided pictures in an email once I saw it of the stonework on the property and also the stonework that was mocked up on the site.
Right. Now, this is a historic landscape, and correct me if I'm wrong, I kind of remember somebody saying that it would be possible at some point to remove all this, right? It's now becoming a little more difficult, isn't it, to remove all this with stone bridges and tunnels. A little more difficult than when there were just trestles and on the landscape terrain. So that's one issue. And then I also remember at the last meeting there was a discussion about the veneer on the office, or whatever that's called.
To switch to the train station?
Yes.
It was going to be
From Wood
wood construction. And I think I mentioned that this was the first time in this project that we had something fake going on.
We call it fake.
Veneer stone.
Yeah.
Well, it's it's trying to look like something that it's not.
Okay, I will ask other planning board members for their comments. Sharon?
I was just wondering how different this track that's there now, is there any similarity with the very original one that Astor had?
No. Actually, so Sharon's right in this location right here. Here is actually just a small portion of Astor's original, part of Astor's original train location. Actually, there's some pieces of trestle that are still present that were just a locus post that were used for trestle, but no, the alignment is unique, and it took into consideration the site conditions and also the design as is coordinated with the client and the owner.
Planning board members? Is there anyone here from the public who wishes to comment on this application?
I'd like to say something.
Oh, and could you come in the microphone, please?
Oh, sure.
Introduce yourself. I'd like to hear from you.
Hi, my name is it working?
Yes.
Okay. My name is Bill Cotting. I'm a local resident, been here all my life. And I actually had the opportunity to ride on Astor's original train. So I think this project's great, just to see it again and in the area that it is, the historic thing. So I think it's great.
Thank you. Anyone else? Well, where are we going with this? What are our options? Mike, did you have something more you want to say?
No, I don't know. I realized that, just got you material. I did actually submit the materials on July 21st, but I resubmitted them today. That included the archaeological information, so I have nothing else to add.
Well, let me ask planning board members, do you see the only issue as being the disturbance, or are you also bothered, hoping you seem to have some feelings about a change in the exterior of the train station? Is that something that you want us to discuss further, or do you feel that it's the disturbance question that's the major point of discussion?
Well, I guess I don't see it as apart from or very different from the idea of building a bridge and putting stone on it. I mean, it's making this into something that looks and will be permanent. And I'm not a historian. I don't know how important it is to have this be an installation that actually could be removed at some point without a huge major effort.
Well, I think it would be a major effort. I wouldn't want to suggest that it would be easy. I do believe it could be taken down. And once you, and Craig can agree or disagree, but once you deviate from, this is not a reinstallation of what was there historically. This is an adapted reuse and an interpretation. So once you go in that direction and accept that this is a much larger train layout, then you open the door to a train station that doesn't look like it originally, and how far you go with that is a matter of opinion. But I don't think that it stands alone, the surface on the exterior of the building as the only sort of newly fabricated train. And I'm not criticizing it, I'm just saying it's not the original train, it's not the original alignment. There's no attempt here, there's no attempt being made to to recreate exactly what was there. So with that will come changes and adaptations that go along with that construction. Barry, would you add anything to that?
No, I mean, my own personal preference would be for the wood siding version of the station, but, my preferences are not really relevant. I think it's perfectly fine to go with the stone veneer siding. And that stone veneer is similar to the veneer that's being used on the bridge, which is very similar to the veneer that exists on the historic walls that surround the property. So, it's kind of keeping within a particular vocabulary. So I think it's fine. I think my reservations on this are related more to larger issues that have to do with deviations from conditions that were stipulated for approval. And when we go through this project predates my tenure on the board by quite some time. And I know that there were stipulations made that things were going to be carried out in a particular way. And when those, even though they might be very sound building practice and might be perfectly sound from an engineering standpoint, if they conflict with what was previously approved, what does the planning board have to say about that?
Well, I think we're in somewhat the same sort of situation we were in a few minutes ago, in that it would be possible to go ahead with a conditional approval this evening, with the condition being that Dr. Wentworth does not find a significant result in the change that was made. That's really, in my opinion, what's outstanding as a question. And I would be comfortable with that. I defer to my colleagues here to see what their feelings are, but then the call is yours again, Mark, in terms of, I think I have seen Dr. Wentworth turn her information around quickly, so I would not expect it to drag on, but it certainly would drag on beyond this evening.
That's fine, and also depending on Anne's decision, if more archaeology is required, we'll do it.
Okay.
Absolutely.
How does everybody feel about that?
I think it's a rational way to go. I mean, it sounds like a somewhat more significant type of a foundation that's probably required from an engineering standpoint. But I think one of the things we thought was comfortable with is that it was going to be very more than just a point type of a thing. The way we see the new solar panels going in is aluminum frames now rather than huge concrete bases and things like that. And which obviously wasn't any concern. I think just from a safety standpoint, if we can wait until Anne speaks, that she usually does do things really quickly. And then we're all secure in the fact that this is not an issue, or if it is, then as you say, then we can go right ahead.
It's fine. I mean, apologies to the board for didn't feel that I understand that some change in our foundation, but I have witnessed through the files, it's not, there is some disturbance associated with it. Obviously, this is more, there's no doubt about it, but once again, we've got that, all that soil is going back in and being compacted around those foundations.
All right, and that's probably, that's also a change that Craig has picked up on that we probably would need to know going forward. It's not gravel, we're going back to replacing the soil. So those are two minor changes. And so if Jim is satisfied and we're satisfied, we can add something to the draft procedural resolution this evening to make it conditional upon the receipt of the report from Dr. Wentworth.
Okay, and so if Dr. Wentworth needs additional information, please put in there that we will immediately take care of it.
Okay.
Are we keeping the public hearing open then until we get to Dr. Wentworth?
Well, it's up to you. Do you want to continue the public hearing or do you want to issue a conditional approval?
How do you feel, Mark? I mean, you're the one, as you said earlier, the conditional approval, she says, wait a minute, I think this is going to be required. We close the public hearing, get a conditional approval. then you kind of go back to square one.
Absolutely. So I would, truthfully, I'd rather go to the next meeting and.
By then it should be all wrapped up.
And so, and has something, hopefully, we have time to take care of it when we come back to the board.
Well, if I'm not wrong, the only thing that's in play here in this application is the change from the trestle to the bridge, the change from the channel or
The tunnel.
Yeah, to the tunnel, and the slight change in the footprint of the roundhouse and the siding on the ticket booth. Those are the only things that are part of this application. So if you want to wait until the next meeting, that's probably
I think
fine.
let's wrap it all up.
That's-
And then
yeah.
as long as
I move that we continue the public hearing to the next
Second.
meeting.
Is that September 5th, correct? Okay. I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Seconds all over the place, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? Thanks.
Thank you.
Public hearing this evening, the next is Jeremy Kaplan, for 235 Salisbury Court, site plan and special use permit.
I'm Tyler Horsley from Wagner Hodgson Landscape Architecture in Hudson. And so we've looked at this project before to update you. Oh, this isn't quite current. And I've got a thumb drive that shows the updated plan. Right? Yes.
All right.
Is that submitted to
Was
this?
it submitted?
It was submitted, yeah.
You got it?
It's I mean, it's fractionally
I
different.
might have pulled the old one.
We're not gonna-
Take them.
Oh, okay, yeah, oh, okay. All right, so since I last was here, we had our site visit and our walkthrough, and we have approval from zoning. So zoning signed up on the location, and we have a variance for that. At the site visit, we made a decision to supplement this line of white pine trees along the road with some shrubs that would grow densely in case there were deer browse on the pine trees. And we talked during the walkthrough about forsythia, but the homeowner doesn't like forsythia, so we're going to use bridal veil spirea in that location. And what that will do will form a kind of an additional barrier sort of up to this height. So if the deer browse the underside, the lower branches of the pine trees, it will provide additional screening for that. And also submitted was an archaeology report, and the findings was they found nothing on site. And really, that's all that's been changed since the last time.
While Jim's looking, who made the site visit?
I did, along with Elise.
Okay.
The land rises from the road. If we could go back to the... Yeah, there you go. So if you're on the road, even without any pine trees or right-of-way, you would have a hard time seeing the location of the sport court. There are some trees that are in front of where the sport court will be. Do we need to have that thing sitting there, Jim, on the front of the...
Oh, sorry, I'm trying to find the file.
Okay. So with the addition of, I think, what are they, white pine?
Yeah.
Is that what you decided? And right-of-way along the road, no one will ever see the sport court. In addition, it's my understanding that the fields will remain primarily natural growth of wildflowers and so forth. So there'll be some height to the growth of the fields, although they will remain fields. So there's certainly no issue at all from the point of view of viewing this or it being any kind of problem for the neighborhood. There was also a question about the forestry plan and what exactly it covered, and materials were sent through showing that the fields and the house site, in other words, the entire building envelope is outside the forestry plan. And so that's not an issue. The other interesting thing is the wetland on the property, which is also shown on Dutchess County Coastal Access. Doesn't really look like a wetland. There's no wetland vegetation. There are mature trees, including things that you would typically see in a wetland. So I guess there's a vernal pond there, so, you know, seasonally, there's probably some moisture that comes through there.
That's the same one.
That was the one you liked there.
Just, they're having trouble finding what you're indicating.
There really were no issues.
No, about the change in plans, Jim isn't able to find what.
I know, but it's a
You
policy.
sure you don't want a thumb?
It's a policy, no, it's a thumb drive.
So, I mean, if the only change is the addition of the shrubs added to the cover, we would ask that you approve the plan that you do have on record, perhaps with a condition that we submit an update showing the additional shrubs.
What was the date on it? You know what the date was on it?
Doesn't that
Last
show
one I
the
have
plan? That's just,
That shows.
oh, okay, that doesn't show the additional shrubs,
Yeah.
right?
And I think what we just heard from Member Lackman is that they might not even be needed, with just extra protection.
The only question I have is the placement of the shrubs where they get sufficient sunlight. Because the spirea typically to grow properly is going to need at least a half day of sun, otherwise it's going to be a little scrappy.
The existing line of trees along the road is really very scratchy, and there's a lot of ash in it, which is on its way out. And so, oh yeah, so this kind of gives you a sense of this is the existing condition taken in this place. So the town roads department asked that we set the pines back 35 feet from the edge of the road, and then the spirea will be in front of the pines. So it's not ideal condition for growing spirea, but it's probably adequate.
Okay.
You know, forgetting the density that we're.
What was the number?
It was a lot. It was probably 60. It's like, you know, it's a long run. So.
And what's planned is very naturalistic planting. It's not going to look like a row of anything, you know, it would look very natural.
We're very conscientious about keeping, there are existing pines on the property, and that's what we chose them, and sort of the evergreen that's indigenous to that particular landscape. You know, there is a little bit of a deer browse vulnerability.
Let me ask, is there anyone from the public here wishing to comment on this application? I'm comfortable with the discussion that took place in the field and your presentation of the additional landscape material to move ahead with an understanding that your final plan that comes into me will show that, and if it doesn't, I won't sign it.
That's fair.
Does that work for everybody else here?
It does. I just, a question occurred to me. Is spirea considered an exotic, or is it indigenous of this area? And also, is it the kind of thing that's going to get, like, is it going to get around? Are you going to be overcome by spirea?
Neither spirea nor forsythia are native. They're both Asian shrubs. It's been something that's been grown traditionally in this area for, I don't know, 150 years.
We have it at FDR.
Yeah.
And it goes crazy. I mean, it's really hardy.
Yeah, it's very hardy, it's very reliable,
And very dense.
Neither one of them really seed around, so they're not invasives. They're not
Okay.
anywhere on the invasive list, and in my experience, they're not invasive. So. They'll sucker.
Okay. Because everything that I've seen about these presentations, it really seems like the sports court, you're not going to see it. It just seems to be way back there. it's screened by topography, it's screened by vegetation that you're putting in, and I don't want you to have to go to additional unnecessary trouble. But if that's what's going to resolve that issue of the deer browsing, then that seems sensible.
Yeah, I mean, we don't know that the deer will browse it, but there are white pines across the street that are doing some browse, so, yeah, it's a reasonable.
So is everybody okay with the, all right, so Jim, I'll ask you to run through the draft approval resolution.
Okay, draft approved resolution for the board's consideration tonight for Jeremy Kaplan, acting on the application for site plan special use permit under Town Code Chapter 125 for installation of the sports court at 335 Celebrate Turnpike, reaffirming the action is type 2 under seeker, with coordinated environmental quality review included. Based upon the submitted information, finding that proposed work to construct the sports court is consistent with the objectives and regulations of Chapter 125. With respect to special use permit, to approve the sports court, finding the work and intended use is consistent with general standards for special use permits, and granting the requested special use permit conditioned upon site plan approval. With respect to site plan approval, finding that the work and intended use is consistent with Town Code Chapter 125, and approve the application inclusive of the materials and plans by Wagner Hodgkin Landscape Architecture with a date that I will update according to the most recent submission. And then authorizing the planning board chair to stamp and sign the site plan on the satisfaction of the three conditions listed there.
I would start with a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Thank you, Michael. Second.
Second, Sean.
Sean, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The resolution's just been presented to you. May I have a motion to
So
accept?
moved.
Thank you, Michael. Second.
Sean.
Thank you, Sean. I'll pull the board. Craig?
Aye.
Edna? Aye. Sharon? Aye. Michael?
Aye.
Sean?
Aye.
And I vote aye. Go forth and build.
So my next steps are just to get the updated plans to.
Yeah, and as soon as it comes in,
The 26 ones.
They might have been, I mean, yeah, that sounds right.
That's the newest one, yeah. I just sent them.
okay, well.
To make sure you have what you already did.
All right.
so-
Take care of
We'll
this.
make sure, as soon as it's here, all stamps ready for me, I'll sign and we're ready to go.
Okay, great, thank you so much for accelerating the approval, I appreciate it.
Next up this evening, Benjamin Abrams, Top Notch, 104 Russell Avenue for a minor subdivision.
Good evening.
Thank you.
I think when we were here last month, gave a brief presentation on the two-lot subdivision, 15-acre parcel being split into an 8-acre and a 7-acre parcel. And there's one house on one of the lots that's served by an existing well and septic system. The second lot will have its own well and septic. We've done the soil test and the design, and we're well on our way with the health department. I think at that time, our phase 1A and 1B was in process. It since has been completed. The findings by the archaeologist was that it's a clean site.
Okay.
We would add this, if you note on lot number 2, on my previous submittal, I showed the house, driveway, well, and septic area. But being that this is a permission to file, okay, I'm not, the health department won't sign anything that shows a well or a septic unless it's obviously approved. So I'm just showing the area for possible development that coincides with the house that was previously, and it also coincides with the study by the archaeologist.
Joe, comments?
Nothing new. The only one that was outstanding was the phase 1A, 1B, which we got, and again, didn't show anything of significance on the site. So,
Who made the site visit?
I think I would.
Think you did?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah,
I think we
and
did.
there's Michael.
You know, we had the Dutch report, I think this is being laid out nicely. the thing I was really impressed with is the number of really old, huge, old mature trees in this property. It's absolutely gorgeous. I think they've selected the development area for the new house and whatnot, that area, without having to intrude upon us. There are open areas in the property, so you can take advantage of those. I think I don't see any problems with what they're proposing to do with this and this subdivision. It's well thought out.
Great.
Oh, yeah, I agree. It seemed like it was a very favorably situated where you were planning to put the building site and set very far back from the road. You had expressed a concern about the driveway across the street and how you didn't want to have your driveway directly opposing that neighbor. So I think those are all good indications that it's well thought out and sensitive to your surroundings.
I think our first submittal, we did show that driveway further down, and although it had the proper visibility or sight distance, we would do a little more excavation and we would intrude on those trees. So what we did is we realigned it as shown, and the trees that will be affected are young growth.
Other planning board members? Anyone here from the public wishing to be heard on this application? All right. I think I have a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Michael, second. Edna, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Thank you very much. Motion carries. Jim, you have our draft approval resolution.
I do a draft approval resolution for the board's consideration for minor subdivision lot line adjustment for Benjamin Abrams at 104 Russell Avenue, confirming classification, actually I think I'm listed, which environmental quality review is precluded. Based upon the submitted information, finding that the proposed work is consistent with the objective stated in chapter 101. With respect to the minor subdivision, finding the proposed action is consistent with the town code, improving the application inclusive of the plan sheet prepared by Ernest Martin, the revision dated May 25th, 2023, authorizing the planning board chair to stamp and sign the above cited site plan upon the satisfaction of the three conditions, four conditions listed there.
I hear a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Sharon and Michael. All those in favor? Oh, I will poll the board, Louise. Aye. Audrey?
Aye.
Edna? Aye. John?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
Aaron? Aye. I'll vote aye. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
The next public hearing on the schedule is Laura Sullivan, 127 Hilltop Road, site plan review to construct a pool house. Is there anyone here?
I'll be brief, we're requesting an
Pardon me?
We're requesting an extension until next meeting.
Okay, Gretchen, there's a request to continue the public hearing until September 18th. Is there anyone here from the public wishing to comment on this application? Any comments or questions from the planner? I don't believe we have additional new information. No, okay. May I have a motion to continue the public hearing to September 18th? Thank you, Edna. Second, please.
Second.
Thank you, Michael. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, the motion carries. And the last public hearing scheduled for this evening is Rockledge, 492 Attrick Hook Road, site plan approval, special use permit and wetlands permit for condo units.
I'm accused on this.
Okay. Mark?
Good evening. We have, on behalf of Rockledge, have made all submissions to the town engineer and have yet to receive comments on the submissions, so we have nothing to add.
Planning board members? Jim, any public comment? All right, I could entertain then a motion to continue the public hearing until September 18th. Okay.
So
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention, motion carries.
Thank you.
I have some additional information for you.
Okay.
A few pages in there, 'cause this
Sure.
is- all we have left is the ZBA referral for Optum and the sign variance. And let the record report that Edna is returning from her brief time away. Go ahead.
Sorry. So I submitted to the board a pretty lengthy write-up on this. We did review this originally back in April of 2023 with the zoning administrator referral that came at that time. There were 3 variances that were identified as being required. We provided a number of comments on that, submitted those back to the zoning administrator back in May. Since then, they've come back in, and I don't think anything has changed, but the current zoning administrator found that there were 2 variances needed, not 3. Still the same thing, we're looking at all the same signage, but the way that the calculations were done when they resubmitted the material, he took a look and just decided that the 2 variances needed were different. So there's an overall area variance for 26.59 square feet of total surface area required. That exceeds the 30 square foot total permitted, so it'll be a total of 56.59. And then an area variance for 3 signs that exceed the total of 2 that are permitted. And that is because we have a sign on the building, we have a sign out at the street, and then there are signs on the doors. They're all essentially replacing what exists today. There's nothing new really going in there, it's just new, but the signs themselves are being replaced in kind, the doors are essentially in kind. This one's the same size, and this one is actually smaller. You can see from the rendering here, what they're putting up there is actually smaller than what exists today. So my recommendation for the board was that a referral response back to the ZBA on this is that the variances raise no significant planning or environmental concerns based on several criteria, and then the same criteria we submitted to the zoning administrator back in May. Again, different variances have been found this time, but it's all the same stuff, just a different way of calculating it. That the planning board has noted previously commercial signage requirements are quite strict and may need a revision as they seem to not be adequate for most commercial operations located along the higher speed roads in the town. That the street side monument sign is effectively being replaced in kind. The wall sign appears to be smaller than what currently exists. The new sign will actually be a reduction in sign size, despite being a part of the overall combined sign total that creates a requirement for a variance. The orange color of the wall sign is bright in comparison to other signs in the area. However, it doesn't appear to be all that inconsistent with the adjacent top sign, which is bright red, or some of the other buildings around that also have colorful signs. And while the window sign is more than is permitted and a variance is being requested, our review of the information proposed shows that it's really what we would generally consider the typical important information displayed to anyone entering a medical building. The code says it has to communicate accessory information such as hours of operation, in and out, things like that, totaling no more than 1 square foot in size, and this is what they're proposing. Again, I think it's pretty typical standard stuff. I don't think there's an issue with it. What they're proposing on the door, it just happens to exceed that 1 square foot. So essentially the same response is my recommendation to the ZBA.
Comments, questions?
The sign on the building, is it lighted? Is it not like neon or anything?
No, it's just being replaced.
It's really bright.
Other than orange.
Looks good to me.
Could I
I guess the
hear,
only thing I would say is, you know, if you wait another month, a couple things to know.
you and I were thinking of the same thought. But let's not go there.
Sorry.
Anyway, may I hear a motion, please?
So moved.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions. Before we adjourn, I would like to ask planning board members to stay on after the conclusion of the meeting. There's some question I need to pose to you to get some feedback on. So, other than that, may I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Now, I guess, just given the significance of what we need to discuss, I think we really want to have it on the record.
I was told not to.
I don't care what they told you, if they want our opinion, I think we want it on the record, so what we discuss is not misrepresented.
Well,
That's my feeling, I mean, if the rest of the board feels we can, you know, discuss this.
Oh, does it have to do with an application?
no, as a matter of fact, and well, this leaves me in a quandary, a bit of a quandary. I will tell you what the subject of the conversation is about, and that we were requested to provide feedback. there is no, we are not in a position of making any decisions tonight. We're simply looking for input. So the subject of the conversation that I want to have is that the previously, the project that we had been looking at before, which had to do with workforce housing, which was the submittal from the planning company, is looking to wind its way back to the town board, which is where it currently resides. And there is discussion underway about who is better qualified or how we should proceed with the seeker determination. And so that was, the town board is asking for the opinions of individual planning board members, not to be a recommendation from the planning board, but simply your thoughts as they're considering whether they take lead agency status or whether they would indeed ask us to consider taking lead agency status. Does that summarize it, Jim?
Do we have any authority?
We're not here to discuss it. I'm here to take feedback and questions, and I can take that back to the planning board. I can't answer any of those questions, nor do I want to be in a position of.
Do we have any recommendation from our planning board attorney?
Not at this point.
I mean, it's kind of hard in a vacuum to give a point of view. The major issue, as I remember, was whether the planning board would have its normal authority to require and decide. And so we need an answer to that.
I'm prepared to give my opinion on this.
Can I let Jim,
I was just going to say, this is a different part of the process. So, as you know, the planning board submitted a letter to the town board when they were asking for comments originally. Everyone kind of gave us comments. I pulled that together and we submitted that to the town board along with the other boards and committees. That's been submitted. The discussion now is related to seeker, which is kind of the next step. Seeker is going to occur before it comes back to the planning board. Essentially, the way the process is laid out, it comes back to the planning board for an official review at the end of the process. The seeker is going to take place ahead of that. So it's at the town board. It is a town board project. Their next step, in addition to whatever they're discussing with Kearney, is to undergo the seeker process. So the discussion right now is the seeker process, is not your official review that happens at the end of the process. They're certainly related, but it's a different step. We're much earlier in the process.
But there are important questions that are part of seeker.
Absolutely.
Right? And this board may have a view of that differs from the town board, I believe.
And I think that's where this comes up. Seeker is first of all, my understanding of seeker is you need to be an involved agency to be lead agency in the project. I believe that's clearly stated in the seeker regulation. We are not an involved agency in this. It's a legislative act of the town board to rezone, to create the special use permit and the new zoning to permit this project to go forward. Therefore, I don't think legally we're in position to do that. Beyond that, in order to do seeker, we need to understand the full project. We need to understand what's there. When we did Rockwood, when we did Grassmere, we did extensive reviews, public hearings, so we have the information to know what are and are not the environmental issues here. We have been left out of that process completely. We don't know. So we are now going to have to go forward and do a complete review of this project so we will be capable of doing a seeker review. That's not our job. And beyond that, I think any of us who were here for that initial informational meeting, as it turned out to be called, by the town board on this room was full of people, angry people. It was almost a fight back there by the judges. This is not a small issue, and it is not the planning board's responsibility to do this. Also, if we did do the seeker review, we said, this is a major problem, it can be mitigated by A, B, and C. We do not have the authority to tell the town board, you have to do A, B, and C. We're an advisory group, strictly. We do not have the authority to do any of the things we do now for projects in front of us. And last but not least, and I don't think it is least, given what we would have to do a seeker review on this, where on our agenda does that come up? Where are we going to put that on our agenda? Are we going to need more meetings each month to do that? I think this is ridiculous. I think this is the town board's project. They have done it without including anybody else in it. Therefore, they should know what they're talking about, and if they want, they should hire someone to do this. We're volunteers, we give our time. And the fact that we're even being asked to do this, yeah, I'm pissed off. And I think it is totally, it's irresponsible by our town board. With the legislative body, it's their responsibility. They need to take the responsibility for doing this. And yeah, they're gonna get their heads screamed off by the public the way this has gone forward. It's not gonna be pretty, but it's their job, their responsibility, not ours. And I wanted that on the record. I don't want anyone saying later, well, the planning board, they weren't too sure about whether they wanted to do this or not. That's how I feel anyway, and I'm not pretending to speak for any of the rest of you. That's how I feel. And personally, I will not participate in doing it along these lines. I think it is illegal. I think it's irresponsible. I don't think it's our job to do that. And beyond that, I'd rather just spend more time at planning board meetings reviewing someone else's project. I simply don't have the time or the willingness to do that.
Under what conditions would you consider it?
I wouldn't consider
I would
it.
not want to go into a discussion. We've been asked to
Yeah.
give feedback, and I don't want us to start
I understand what
negotiating.
you're saying, Edna. I feel it's the town board's project, it's a legislative act by the town board. We have no authority to tell them what to do.
All right, you understand the position that I'm in here, that we've been asked for feedback, and that we're not in a position to be making a decision.
No.
So I'm more than happy to hear all of your comments, but I don't want this to be a discussion or anything moving toward, at this point, an opinion issued
Right.
on behalf of the planning board. That's not where we're at right now.
Well, I'll just simply say that I agree with Michael because I think it's logically inconsistent for the planning board to try to play that role, given everything I understand about New York State town law.
Others? I want everybody to have an opportunity if they want to offer an opinion.
Is it typical for the town board to conduct seeker review?
I don't personally believe so, but I
mean,
would
that's-
not want to be the person telling you.
Typically, the kind of thing that,
Legislative acts they do.
Hmm?
For legislative
For
acts, they
legislative
do all the
acts,
time.
yes.
So it's not
They did
foreign.
seeker review for the new zoning law comprehensive plan, for example, the town board did that, the planning board did that.
I'm trying to take notes. And I missed a few comments.
Now it's on the record, you don't have to worry about
Well-
taking notes.
All right, well, I stand corrected. Okay, anyone else? Okay. I'm sure we'll hear more in the future, and I appreciate your comments. So with that, may I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you very much. You all have a good evening.